Hey everyone. All right, so it's probably my fifth take of this video. I'm just gonna make one. I have a benchmark actually. I'm using like a performance benchmark, but all we really have to go by these days are these infomercials. You got Joe Namath. The guy does amazing infomercials. How am I supposed to compete with that? I mean, his teeth are fantastic. He's got phosphorescent teeth. He moves his torso every, so I think it's every 3 seconds. He's like this. He's got the hand motions going. So I don't have any of that. I can't compete with Mr. Namath. I mean, the guy's got fantastic infomercials, man. Anyways, so it's been quite a long time since I posted a video, and I do apologize for that. I guess I've dove pretty deep into tech, much deeper than I anticipated. And I got into Linux system administration. So really quick, Linux, Mac OS, Windows OS, those were the early operating systems. Linux was free and open source, meaning any developer in any part of the world could just download it and use it and then work on it. Whereas Mac OS and Windows were proprietary, but they all found a way to come together in one way, shape, or form. That's where we are now, and that's why you're seeing things like hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. They're really networks, right? Networks of machines that have authentication, like who is this machine? Is it a Linux machine? Is it a Windows machine? Is it a Mac OS machine? Authorization, what can this machine do? Or you for that matter, same concept, right? So all that to say, since it was free, every developer on planet Earth did use it. And that's why it's just remarkably fast. But we're not really told too much about it, in the commercial world. So diving into it was really interesting. And exciting, really exciting. So the open source world, you probably heard of, and that's really just going to be based on Linux, right? This idea of being able to openly collaborate and develop these applications and the engineering behind it. But you don't hear that word very much anymore. You just hear developer. But you really get a good look at the engineering behind all of this stuff, and it's fascinating. So all that to say, what I've done is Linux system administration, Amazon Web Services solutions architecture, and I built out a WordPress.org, which is open source. WordPress.com is going to be proprietary, but WordPress.org, commercial, I should say. WordPress.com is a commercial version of WordPress.org, and it's not semantics either, unfortunately. With that said, great company runs it, Automattic. So they put a lot of work into it, and it's this distributed team all over the planet that are contributing to WordPress.org, WordPress.com, and then WooCommerce as well. So what I've done is built out a hosting platform. So let's say you go buy 10 domains right now. You could actually host all of those domains on this WordPress hosting platform. And then since Automattic developed WooCommerce as well, you can just integrate directly with an e-commerce store. And that was the idea behind it, right? The starting point was really, I was looking at all the cybersecurity going on and realized we need to figure out how we can secure our networks more. At least, for me personally, I really wanted to figure out how deep I can go and really secure what I was doing. And as I did that as well, I wanted to figure out if there was a way to solve social issues like homelessness, for example. I wanted to figure out, is there a way that I can develop something, or we can develop something rather, that even a homeless person could walk into a library and start making money that day. I don't see why that wouldn't be, an opportunity in the United States at all, quite frankly, with the amount of code that's been written, how many times it's been written. And as it would turn out, I think I came pretty close to at least putting together, the workflow and the algorithm, if you will. So all that to say, I'm just going to rifle through this proposal. I'm going to call this participatory development. It's going to help you understand the software development lifecycle without actually having to really do anything. I'm just going to be mapping out a couple of things for you so you can track where we're at, and I'll define them for you so you can participate and get a good eye on how this whole process works across Linux, across AWS, across Mac, across Windows, all of that. And I'm going to be giving you a bunch of code. I've written probably about 2,000 lines of code. This is all, probably not going to make very much sense right now if you don't have any experience in tech. If you do, it should make some sense. But here's the proposal. What I'm aiming to do is, put together, very much like I did with Brightlander to begin with. It really started by me doing some freelance work and then getting more serious contracts. That was mainly in Salesforce.com consulting. I built out a network, probably about 400 Salesforce.com admins, architects, developers, etc. And now that's transitioning into AWS and whatnot. But there isn't one like centralized company, and that wasn't by design per se. It was mostly because it started for me freelancing. But I didn't also, I started looping in other people. Contracts started getting more intense from a development standpoint. So now it just kind of organically scaled to be an Amazon Activate startup, which is pretty amazing. With that said, I haven't been posting these videos or talking to you. So it's really important, even though it's very late on Friday, quite late. I wanted to push this out because since you can integrate this with WooCommerce, you can actually integrate it directly with Google Merchant Center and Facebook or Meta Marketplace as well. Now, what I'm going to be doing is building your cloud infrastructure, the back end. I'm going to build you a WordPress hosting platform so that you can basically just repeat all of what I've built on the back end for whatever website you might want. You could turn it into a WooCommerce website if you want, or to build off that, you can turn it into just blog.yourwebsite.com. You could turn it into shop.yourwebsite.com. You could turn it into lms.yourwebsite.com for learning management system. There's a number of things that the people are doing, virtual events, webinars.yourwebsite.com. So the idea is you can replicate what you have really easily. And you're basically going to have control of your own network and your own server. I'm going to provision everything for you. I'm going to explain it to you. And then it's basically going to be yours. So I think there's just a lot of clutter in the space. And I've always noticed that. And I think that's why, the tech consulting world just kind of made sense. And why, this thing picked up when it did and how it did. Although I dialed it back to basically not be operating at all until now. And this is going to be the first video that I make where I'm like, all right, let's jump back into these consulting contracts. So I guess a couple of my past clients, Kane Capital, private equity, a high growth private equity fund. Call Tool is an amazing type of dialer system. Channel Factory is also an amazing YouTube advertising company. Those are just a few that I wanted to name because it was actually around that time where I really started digging in. Those were some of the last folks that I worked on projects with. So I figured I'd throw them in there. And this proposal just be, a quick who we are, who we help, how we help, all that. But basically, I'm going to be building you out or helping you provision a virtual machine, like a computer inside of a computer. Imagine being on, some type of screen sharing software for a virtual meeting or a virtual conference, right? Imagine the person that you're in that meeting with, let's just say it's just one other person, a colleague, them giving you mouse control, and then you're controlling their computer. And then they walk away. Let's say that they walk away and they're like, look, I got to go. You can continue using my computer while I'm away. Now, from a technical standpoint, it's not going to be the exact same thing as like a virtual machine. But if they did, then that would be like a hypervisor or a virtual machine is what they call it. Now, let's say that they took their monitor off and there was no really visibility on their end necessarily as to what you were doing. You could just access whatever you were aiming to access when you were in that meeting. In the virtual machine example, if you did take the monitor away and it was just kind of running almost like a Find My Phone type of app, that would be equivalent to like a server. So there's all these Linux servers that are all networked together. There's all these Mac servers that are all networked together. There's all these Windows servers that are all networked together. And then they're networked with each other. Hence you have the cloud, because there's these massive networks that are all over the planet. And then they're networking with each other, right? So you might have a Google application that's being hosted on your hosting platform on Amazon Web Services. Pretty cool. That's a multi-cloud, right? And then there's hybrid cloud. Quite frankly, we're going to be trimming the fat. We're going to be trimming the fat on the nomenclature for a lot of that stuff. Not in terms of, like redefining anything. It would be obviously super annoying. But the idea is to give you infrastructure as code. So you at least have a jumping off point to give you an opportunity to participate in the software development lifecycle, and then to join what I'm going to call the Brightlander Founders Club. So in order to have one of these WordPress hosting platforms, I figured down from about 20 3 is what I had valued it at least initially. I decided to knock that down while I jump things up again and just go a quick 14,280. You'll get the Amazon Web Services cloud infrastructure. You'll get help with the virtual machine. It really depends on what I can legally do, because there's a lot of these nuances in the open source world versus proprietary software. You'll be using a Linux distribution. It's like kind of like a Mac OS Mojave, right? Or Big Sur. Those versions are really just called distributions of Linux. So you'll be using an Ubuntu version. With that said, the one I use is Fedora, and Fedora is sponsored by Red Hat. Red Hat was bought by IBM for $34 billion. So the reality is it's a massive market, and there's tons of opportunity for the people that realize that the software is the tool, right? That the people that are conducting business are really what's valuable in the relationships that we build. So that's the idea behind this. I wanted to create it so that I could repeat it nonstop, which is why I have codes that I wrote, so that we could spin these websites up and down. We could even turn them into e-commerce websites. We could join affiliate programs, so you could be, practically guaranteed to make this money back if you developed or employed some type of circular economics model where you bought and sold from partners. That's really one of the areas that I saw this most benefiting the social issues. Yeah, because it turns out that you kind of go from, I want to solve this social issue, or maybe scope out a project, to this is actually a massive market that I didn't really think of, because I had only really looked at it in this isolated way. But I'm not going to really go there. The point is, I'm going to give you infrastructure as code on AWS. You're going to be able to spin up WordPress. You can have as much content as you want. To give you an example of some other websites run on WordPress, actually, this is an interesting stat. Over 43% of the websites on the internet run on WordPress. Rolling Stones, Capgemini, Tonal. You have tons of different websites that are running on WordPress. And they've just released a new version, which is, I guess it really just changed the landscape. It really did. You can do a lot more with WordPress now than you could literally a couple of months ago. I mean, a considerable amount more in terms of integrating different types of platforms with it. We'll go into that. I think out of the box, the reason I use this is, quite frankly, it would have been easier to just code everything from scratch, but you wouldn't have been able to really manage anything. Whereas going through, using WordPress might have been a little bit more arduous in terms of building this out for me, but in the long run, since I can train you really quickly on how to manage it, it's just going to save us a ton of time. Yeah. And then the Brightlanders Founders Club is going to be, I'm obviously going to be continuing to partner with people and build out software solutions. So you're going to have one of the first looks at that. And I'll be soliciting your feedback, and perhaps you'll be getting some suggestions as well. But that's the idea behind it. There's a lot of people that have rooted me on in the space, despite having moved to the border of Mexico and the U.S., where I went through some technical difficulties, I guess you could say, and then I was shot at, and a chihuahua bit me in the face. So there was a number of different things that happened down there at the border, which were quite odd, right? That I guess you could say work against you, but hey, look, here we are, right? I'm going to leave this open for a week. The first 10 people will be a part of the Brightlander Founders Club. I really wanted to develop this video, before obviously the workday, but here we are at 8 o'clock. Not too bad. So it's Friday evening. I don't know what you guys have going on, but all that to say, hopefully you can catch it. And I was hoping that I could, get this up and going for the weekend, but we might have to, push till next week. Let me know if you're interested, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I'll start, working on the code. We'll actually have to sign a contract and then, transfer funding, and then I'll start working on the code. And I guess if you need some developers as well, I'm not going to be doing recruiting. For the record, in terms of the WordPress hosting platform and everything that it includes, I do list out what I include, which is Amazon's new processors. They're super fast. They're pretty amazing, actually. It's called the Graviton 2. So I do list out what you're going to get for AWS. And I'm not a designer or a WordPress designer. I'll do all of the backend stuff. So I imagine a lot of you have designers at this point, or at least freelancers, which is great. And they really are, kind of the unsung heroes here. I mean, it's like the programmers on the back end are remarkable. They're engineers, and what they do is just really interesting. So much so that I guess I kind of became one, or at least am learning how to become one, and working closely with them. And then on the front end, the design stuff, we overlook it because we just have this instant gratification with everything that we do these days. But the reality is the design stuff is really impressive, really impressive. So I can help you for a fee find designers or developers, but it's not my strength, I guess you could say. So it wouldn't make sense for me to spend time doing that when I could be focusing on doing the backend stuff and getting a designer for you. I think that would make more sense. All right, great. Well, there's the offer. You got a timestamp. 1 week from today. Let me know if you're interested, and we'll start getting the contract underway, and we'll put together the Founders Club. I'm excited. I guess I'll leave you with this. For those of you in Texas that I didn't get to meet personally, my background is, when I went to New York, I worked for a company called Panjiva, a tech startup that was bought by Standard & Poor's. We took government data and turned it into a search engine, and the government data was on imports and exports out of the United States, in and out of the United States, excuse me. So it was a remarkably powerful platform. It was great. The engineers that we had were all MIT engineers, so they were, it was my introduction to the professional world, was working with 10 MIT engineers. So, luckily after that, I worked at IBISWorld. That's when I got into commercial banking and had to go through an exam and really understood how the Federal Reserve operated, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, how the lenders and the creditors, the 5 C's of credit, what they look for in a business that make them an attractive investment, if you will. So this has blended, I would say, those two probably the most, those two experiences the most out of any of the other consulting work I've done or any other contracts I've taken. But with that said, I did host a virtual event series where I had asked the United States Department of Commerce under ITA, International Trade Administration, to participate. And they had 5 speakers at this virtual conference. And that was really amazing. And I had my eye on that when I started this. I just built out the server and wrapped it up this week. There are a few different timestamps that I'm dealing with that I'm omitting, I guess you could say, from this. So time is of the essence, hence the timestamp. But all that to say, that will be a part of the Founders Club. So you'll get a good look at that. And I'm excited for it. We'll see. All right. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope this wasn't too long, and nice to see you all again. Take care. Bye.